Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. This is your host, Amina Ahmed, and you're watching Muslim Network TV. Welcome back to another episode of NextGen, where we speak about the current issues we're facing in our world today, particularly issues pertaining to the youth. You're watching us on Galaxy 19 satellite, MuslimNetwork.tv, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and soon on Apple TV as well. Now, for the past couple of days, we've been seeing unrest in Nigeria, protests against SARS and police brutality. And in order to discuss this today, first we have a journalist and a public policy expert. I'd like to introduce Sandra, who is a journalist and host of the Daily Current Affairs talk radio show, Hard Facts with Sandra on Nigeria InfoFam Lagos, and the station head of strategic partnerships. Thank you so much for being with us, Sandra, in such a short notice. I know that you're around right now, so really thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Amina.
Now, Sandra, I know that you are on the ground, like I said. So tell us about the situation in Lagos right now. What is it like on the ground? What are people feeling? And tell us about the environment.
Things are very tense at the moment. Everybody is very nervous. Everybody's very anxious because it was about this time yesterday that the army, the Nigerian army, broke into, well, let me not say broke into, but it does feel like that's what happened. But around this time yesterday, the Nigerian army cordoned off peaceful protesters who were singing the Nigerian anthem and waving the Nigerian flag and opened fire on them after the state government imposed a curfew that was rushed, that did not allow people time to get home, time to prepare. Lagos is a very small city with too many people, so that means there's always a lot of traffic. And so the very hurriedly announced curfew, plus the panic that induced, added to the fact that people were already protesting police brutality, meant that people went to a particular spot, the Lekki toll gate, to sit down, because curfews are supposed to meet you wherever you are and you stay there. So protesters went to that spot, sat on the floor, waved their flags, sang the Nigerian anthem, and Nigerian soldiers got to that venue, switched off the lights, switched off the toll gates, and shot at the protesters. This is as reported by eyewitnesses who survived the night. So 24 hours later, people are tense, people are nervous, especially because the violence is still ongoing, shootings are still ongoing. There's heavy security presence on the streets of Lagos. And we also have young people who are looting, who are destroying property, who are burning things down. So the general atmosphere here, very, very tense.
I think it's important to note that these were first peaceful protesters that were fired at, and they, like you said, were holding the Nigerian flag, chanting and singing the national anthem, and demanding justice. So the fact that this is happening to them really goes to show, I think, that the current situation in Lagos, in Nigeria right now, I think it's a good time to bring in Kaelo, who is our public policy expert and legal counsel with the telecommunications and technology sector. Kaelo advises within the legal, compliance, regulatory, and public policy functions. Thank you so much, Kaelo, for being with us. Absolute honor to have you as well.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, Kaelo, I want to ask you, right, as a public policy expert, what has been the reaction from human rights groups and people at the top?
Thank you very much, Amina. Well, the reaction has been very mixed. International, local news, international observers like the United Nations, Human Rights Watch, public figures like Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, the presidents of Ghana, and lots of global world thought leaders as well, have all chimed in with a lot of horror, because it was a very unexpected situation. Like Sandra accurately described, the military driving in and opening fire on very young, peaceful protesters who were sitting on the floor, who were singing songs, who had no arms whatsoever, who believed strongly in the country to the extent that they had the Nigerian flag draped over their bodies was quite the shocker all over the world. But that's just the reaction that we've gotten from from these people. Government officials have been very silent. The governor of the state addressed people, and the feedback he got would have probably made him, wish he'd not address the people, because the information that the address contained more alternative facts that were at variance with eyewitness reports, that were at variance with the videos that everybody watched, that were at variance with the Instagram live videos that we saw. He came out on live TV to say that nobody was killed, which was unbelievable to listen to. He also tweeted, alluding to the fact that there was no leadership amongst the protesters was, created one of the scenarios that led to the eventual violence, rather than owning the violence and owning the fact that there was no leadership from the government, there was no leadership stemming from public quarters, where people had actually invested their own faith, essentially. I don't think any of the protesters who were on the grounds expected that their own government would open fire on them. Nobody sits down there chanting the national anthem expecting to be shot at, because I'm sure there was this belief, regardless of how tiny it was, that the government would still listen. The worst case scenario everybody expected was that there would be arrests, but that wasn't what happened, and the world all over saw what happened. It's very sad, but that's the reaction. We haven't gotten a reaction from the president. People are still waiting. It's been over 24 hours. No reaction from any of the ministers. No reaction from the vice president. No reaction from even the local government chairman of the area where this massacre happened. Everybody's really just been mute, because silence at this point in time is perceived as the safest reaction, so that's what it is right now as far as reactions go.
I think that's really interesting that the people that did speak up, the one person that did give, absolute just false information, and the rest of them are silent when they should be addressing the public who is unsatisfied, clearly. But what is this public? What are these protesters demanding?
It is so simple. What the young people of Nigeria, what we are asking for, is for an end to police brutality, for a removal and a complete deletion of the rogue police unit known as SARS, the Special Anti-Robbery Force, which has almost certainly outlived its usefulness, which has been scrapped over and over again for the past couple of years, which has been has so many crimes labeled against them, even from Amnesty International, murders, rapes, illegal detention, abductions, so many issues. The issues are unbelievable sometimes when you read them. The accounts of young people who have gone through some very excruciating experiences up until the very moment that we're speaking, there's still things going on over there, So there's a simple 5-point agenda that was raised, a quick win for the government, asking that this SARS team be scrapped, asking for immediate police reforms, asking for justice for victims of these individuals, and also asking for the salaries of policemen to be increased. So we're even asking for the welfare of policemen to be looked into, to ensure that these policemen who are on the streets, who are charged with safeguarding our lives and property, are paid, commensurately with the sort of work that they're doing, in such a way that they're earning enough to not looking too bright, or at least it's a way of deterring them from doing so anyway. So these were such quick wins, and the government's reaction to these demands were to put a gun, send the military out on young people and just gun them down. That's essentially what happened.
Sandra? Sandra, would you add to that?
Well, so for the past 3 years, at least, we have had young people talk about the abuses, the gross human rights abuses that they've suffered in the hands of the police, and most especially SARS. The calls to end SARS intensified in 2017. Then ignited of 2020. Allegedly beating up a man, maybe even killing him, and driving off with his SUV. As soon as that happened, the conversation about ending SARS came back up again. And when that began, everybody in the country jumped on it, because one more time, the president and his team said, we've scrapped the unit. Now, this is not the first time that the Nigerian government has said, we have scrapped this unit. It's happened in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, now 2020. And so I think when young Nigerians heard that, young Nigerians who are the primary target of police brutality. Why? Because they have locks in their hair. I've got locks in my hair. So as a young Nigerian who's got locks in her hair, this makes me a target. Kaelo has a huge beard. He's got buff chest. He's wearing a nice wristwatch. That makes him a target. He's also a young man. He's living in Lekki Phase 1. So immediately he's seen in that neighborhood. He's seen as well-to-do. And the police force in Nigeria cannot fathom that young people can look like I do or look like he does and be doing legit work. And so they start to extort you, they start to rob you, they start to kill you, they kidnap you, they take you to ATMs, hold you at gunpoint, make you withdraw money that is in your account so that you can give it to them that are the force men. And young people said, enough is enough. Stop killing us. That's the demand. Stop killing us. We're done with this. We don't want this anymore. Don't kill us anymore. That's it. So bring the cops who have killed people before to justice. Ensure that every protester who has been arrested during the protests has been released. A total reform of the police force. The demands have been very simple. There is absolutely no reason why the Nigerian government should met out the kind of force that it has. It allegedly tried to go after the organizers of this movement, the Feminist Coalition, who have been organizing logistics, medical care, legal care, food, things like that. They've tried several times to cut off their source of funding. They've accused them of all kinds of things. And it continues to go on simply because young Nigerians who are between 18 to 35, who make up 67% of the population in this country, said, enough is enough, stop killing us. And that's what culminated in what happened in Lekki yesterday. The demands are very simple. Stop killing young Nigerians. It's a simple demand to meet. There's no reason why the Nigerian government should be taking the path that it has currently taken. And then to have the governor of the state get on national and international TV and say to the world, no lives were lost, even though the world, more than 130,000 people, were watching on DJ Switch's IG Live, where people were dying, people were panicked, people did not know what was going on. People sat down and sang the national anthem and had bullets from their own army being shot at them, being rained on them. So to have the governor come out and say what he did on national TV has said to people that even all of the action that the government says that they've taken, like setting up judicial panels to investigate excesses from SARS, things like setting up an account to compensate family members of SARS victims. Those things do not hold water. Now, there's no reason to trust that those actions mean anything. We're talking about a people who are capable of killing a young Nigerian and making his father swim in water filled with corpses. I'm not making this up. Look it up on the internet, you'll find this particular story. There is a cop who is currently on the run, who's been fired by the governor who he was serving as a special assistant, who under his watch, young people in Anambra State were killed and dumped in a river called Ezu. And one time in 2012, when a young man went missing, they went to the police and they told the police what was going on. And the police said to them, oh, we've killed your son and nothing can happen. Nothing will be done about it. And do you know what eventually ended up happening? People rallied around and they said to the family of that young man, oh, go and raise some money. And this family ran around, raised 3 million naira. You do the conversion, what 3 million naira is in your currency. Now, inflation is through the roof, devaluation is through the roof. 3 million naira in 2012 was a lot of money. But yeah, so they raised 3 million naira and they pay the police. The police says it's chicken change. And eventually things get to the point where they tell this young man's father to get into that river filled with corpses, swim in that river and try to find his son. Imagine that. Imagine your father, because I'm assuming we have young people who are watching us right now. So imagine your father having to get into any river of your choice and turn corpses over to search for you. So while he's turning the corpses over, he's hoping, I hope this is not my son. But on the other hand, he turns a corpse and says, I hope this is my son so that this will be over and I can have some closure. That's one story. There are several stories like that. It is not too much for young Nigerians to say to their governments, the government that they elected. Bear in mind that Nigeria is a democracy. Nigeria is not a communist nation. We are not a militarized nation. We are not in a dictatorship. It is a democracy. So as a democracy, Nigerians have a right. What's a democracy? It's government for the people, by the people, right? They have a right to say, we don't like how certain things are going. We need a change. They ask for that change. They ask for police to stop brutalizing them. And how did the Nigerian government answer? They brutalized them some more. It's still ongoing. We still have police on the streets continuing to kill people. We've got thugs on the street, burning houses down, burning buildings down, a thing that may not have happened if perhaps the government had listened to the young people. I have to also add that we've seen footage after footage that seems to point in the direction that government may even have a hand in the thugs who started to cause a lot of mayhem all over the country, which is probably what has forced the government to use a heavier hand. So you allegedly flood the country with thugs that you mobilize, and then say, oh, thugs have attacked the protests, and thugs are attacking peaceful protesters and innocent citizens and burning government properties down. So we have to impose a curfew. We have to send in the army. And then you do that and you start to kill your people. All you need to do is search Twitter. Search the hashtag #EndSARS. You will see heartbreaking footage after footage after footage. It is not right.
Sure.
And
Sandra,
that's putting it mildly.
Sandra, you said that the only thing that these protesters are demanding is stop killing us. That seems like a very simple demand, and the only way that the government is responding is by killing them some more. So really,
Yeah.
I think that we need to continue to have this discussion on what it is that the Nigerian government is doing, what it is that SARS is doing, and the injustices that it is committing. And we'll be right back speaking on this after our short break. You're watching us on Galaxy 19 satellite, MuslimNetwork.tv, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and soon on Apple TV as well. We'll be right back. Welcome back to NextGen. I'm here with Sandra and Kaelo speaking about the unrest in Nigeria as well as the demands of protesters there. Some are saying that these protests are protesting more than police brutality. What does that mean, that they're protesting more than just police brutality? Kaelo?
Is that for me or is that for Kaelo?
Kaelo.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, well, I'm not sure I'm clear on what this means, but I'm gonna try and answer it I'm I'm gonna try to look at it in sort of direction. I think you're taking the question in. Well, it's sort of protests sort of evolve, and essentially what this means is that it started off with a protest against police brutality. What we just wanted, as Sandra has put succinctly, was that police brutality should stop killing us, essentially. But then we considered a lot of things. What are the various issues? We knew that police reforms had to happen. So, of course, that formed a part of our protest demands. We understood the fact that policemen weren't paid well. That formed a part of our protest demands. Of course, other people had other things that they wanted in there. But, the core group and the core group of protesters and everybody else agreed that we needed to be very linear with our demands and keep it as linear as possible. Obviously, at this point in time where protesters have been killed, at this point in time where the military has been sent in, at this point in time where people have lost all trust in the government, whether it's the state government or the federal government, the demands have been rallying from calls for the resignation of the governor to calls for the resignation of the vice president. People have been very upset. People have been very angry, and like I said, rightly so, because our initial demands were as low-hanging as they come. They are the sort of quick wins that any elected government official would grab on. What we expected to see was a lot of empathy. What we expected to see was the governor coming to the people, showing proper. In Nigeria, we have a saying called when you show walking. And essentially what this means is that you put to the pad the workings of what you're doing, what you're trying to, if people are asking for something, you show them the integrity of what you're doing or steps that you're taking towards actualizing what they're asking for, essentially. And we weren't seeing that. We weren't seeing the working, essentially. We're asking you to produce errant officers who have killed, who have beaten, who have raped, who have assaulted young people. And what we're getting in response is, "Oh, don't worry, they are being dealt with." And we're not kids, People want to see justice. Justice can only really be felt if people see justice being served. We're not seeing these officers being arraigned. Mind you, when criminals or alleged criminals are caught in Nigeria or in Lagos, they are paraded on all the television stations you can imagine. They are placed on the floor next to all the weapons. They are paraded half naked. They are dehumanized. But you're telling us that the police officers who have killed people, who have maimed people, who have assaulted people, you don't even, we're not going to see them on television. We're not going to see them being arraigned. We're not going to see anything, So I mean, what are you talking about? So we're not getting that filler, from the government. And so the demands at that point in time, obviously continue to expand. The ultimate demand of young people is for good governance. That is the ultimate demand. But then that's the demand for almost every young person globally, In Nigeria, it's a step-by-step demand. The 5 demands that we asked for, the easiest of demands, they were not met. Right now, Nigerians are completely if there was any sort of trust in the system, it's gone. The average Nigerian on the street that you ask in Lagos State today, what do you want? They're just going to tell you, we want the governor to step down. Because, I mean, what else can they say? Sandra has described the steps that were taken ahead of the protest, taking out the cameras, turning out the lights, all the sort of devious things that you see on television to harm innocent protesters. So Aside from the 5 demands that they've laid down, every Lagosian on the street will tell you what they want, But the 5 demands that we've even laid out in the first place have not been met. They've been scoffed at and more people have died, Reports are putting numbers at various stages, but a modest report will tell you that scores of people have died in the last 24 hours, most of whom died as a result of the military action taken against them.
Sure. And because of that, we were seeing protests in the first place. And like you said, these demands have not only not been met, but they've been met with violence. And to both of you, my question is, Sandra and Kaelo, what can the international community do? What can people in the diaspora, people who are not based in Nigeria, in Lagos, what can they do to help?
All right, so there's Feminist Coalition, a group of amazing young women who banded together. I mean, like I said, NSAS protests have been happening for a long time, but we've never had it this coordinated until women decided to organize. So these young women banded together and they created a logistics arm, if you like, and they started to organize. So they were springing people who were arrested. Can you imagine that? Young people protesting illegal arrests, illegal detentions, brutality, etc., and they were being illegally arrested while they were protesting illegal arrests. So anyways, these young people who got arrested during the protest, young women in the Feminist Coalition, organized lawyers all over the country, because we have to mention that what's happening in Nigeria is not exclusive to Lagos. It's happening everywhere, all over the country. Kano, Imo, Abia, Abuja has had the worst of it. Abuja has been the worst hit. So if you want to help, we say, please keep your eye on the country, because traditional media in Nigeria is very heavily censored by the Nigerian government. And so the only saving grace for Nigeria has been social media and international media presence. So if there is a way that you can get your own local media to continue to cover those stories, the Nigerian government doesn't like to be embarrassed. In fact, they put out a memo through their censorship arm saying to Nigerian media organizations, don't broadcast anything that will embarrass the government. So please embarrass the government for us, cover these stories, don't sleep on it, and donate so that we can get people out of the hospital, so that we can get ambulances to people who need it, who are injured in the protests, so that we can have the lawyers move around and spring people out of jail, and so that we can continue to provide food and security. We have to provide our own security, because at some point, the Nigerian police withdrew their services, stopped protecting protesters, and just left them to the thugs or left them to their own abuses. And so Nigerians had to gather around, donate money to find private security arms to protect themselves during the protests. And guess what? Even those ones we couldn't sustain for too long, because the government tried to truncate that measure. So donate as much as you can. I don't know what's happening, right? I don't know what's going to happen next, because of these things that happened in Lekki Tollgate yesterday. Everybody's hurt, everybody's broken, but I believe that Nigerians are not done, because the message has moved off of social media. It's now out in Nigeria, and everybody is doing with the message what they want to do with it. That's why it looks like the demands have morphed into bigger demands, have snowballed into bigger demands. The demand was simple at first: stop killing us. But Nigerians saw what people were doing, organizing, and so they started to pile on their own demands. Now there's nobody who's in control anymore. Nigerians just want better governance now. So following what's happened today and yesterday night, I don't know what's going to happen next. The only way you can know is if you continue to cover this story and don't look away.
Sure.
Absolutely. And just to add to what Sandra has said, the Nigerians in diaspora have been amazing as well. There have been pockets of protests all over the world. In Canada, we've seen protests in Toronto, in Vancouver. In the United States, we've seen lots of protests all over the United States, in Boston, in New York, in Washington. In the UK, we've seen major protests as well in London. And so we've had protests everywhere. We've had protests in some parts of Africa. We even had protests in Egypt as well. So we've had protests in France, all over the world. Nigerians have been protesting. Celebrities have lent a voice. One of our amazing footballers, Odion Igalo, he's been amazing. The guy he's been speaking out there. He's been coming out, speaking out, and they've been donating. The Feminist Coalition has done an unbelievable task of, coordinating these efforts. And members of the Feminist Coalition have also, gone out there. They've signed up thousands of lawyers nationwide who are working in clusters to get people out of illegal detention. So right now, the biggest weapon right now, like Sandra has said, is the awareness. Get it out there that this is what is happening. People are already aware. Hillary Clinton tweeted yesterday. Joe Biden released a formal statement. People are aware, but we need the word to be consistent, because what you see happening in a lot of these countries is that you're riding on a high at some point, and then everybody just, the focus just moves to some other news story. So we need it to be constant, consistent, completely focused on, using the right hashtags, NSARS, and any other relevant hashtags. And then, like Sandra said, the donations, very critical. Whilst we have a lot of people who have put in a lot of funds, I mean, the Feminist Coalition would always need more. If you look on their website, if you look on their Instagram, there's a link for how to donate using Bitcoin. They have a list of official organizations as well. If you check Beyonce's page, you would also see the Feminist Coalition's link on Beyonce's page as well. So it is a huge global effort centered around this 5 demands, and which are growing anyway. So that's what it is. That's what we hope to achieve. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Kaelo, and thank you, Sandra. To our audience, thank you for tuning in.
Thank you very much.
Make sure to donate. Make sure to educate yourselves and educate those around you, and continue to amplify the voices of those in Nigeria. We saw through what both of them said that this is a very critical situation. Thank you to the both of you. And until next time, Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you.